You are listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Well, happy Monday evening, folks. This is Scotty Roberts. You're listening to the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. For those of you who aren't listening via Odyssey One or any of their affiliates, you can go over there and you can check out all the places this show broadcasts, as well as the terrestrial stations where it airs, or you can come over to my YouTube channel, which simulcasts this broadcast in video. And the best part of the YouTube channel is you can join the live chat room there with the rest of the Intrepids that follow this show. And that's over at my YouTube, youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. How was your weekend, folks? Mine was good. It was pretty laid back. Well, I take that back. Saturday was full. I had a little event where I went to read cards, so I was gone all day. And my wife spearheaded the blue and gold, or gold and blue, whatever they call it, the big banquet, annual banquet for the Cub Scouts. And two of our kids, my son Flynn is 10, my daughter Rowan Claire is 8, and they're both in the Cub Scouts. And of course, the 5-year-old Ellery gets to tag along. Now, they started last year admitting girls into Cub Scouts, which at first I had a little bit of a problem with, because I thought, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, aren't these some of the places where we have created safe spaces for boys to be boys and to be mentored by men, something boys desperately need in our society? Dads are supposed to be the greatest mentors to their sons, but in addition to that, or in the place, especially in our Western culture, where there's so many broken homes, scouting was a great place for boys to have time learning from men. And there's something very, I don't want to say ceremonial or ritual about it, but there is something very strong with boys being mentored by men. Now, of course, there were lots of women involved in Scouts. When I was in grade school, back in the late 60s and the early 70s, I was a Cub Scout, and our den leader was a woman. And it was at one of my friends' homes. And so they've always been involved in scouting, but of course with modern politics the way they are, our modern society, the evolution of society, you could say, they finally opened it up to girls to join the Scouts. Now, in our small town, my young girl, Rowan, she was with the Girl Scouts, but there's not a very strong Girl Scout program here. And they'd go and do a couple of arts and craftsy things, and the most of their time seemed to be spent periodically throughout the year, well, at one time during the year, selling Girl Scout cookies. And I thought, why is my daughter in this group? And I'd ask my wife, is there any strong points about Girl Scouts? Especially when I first resisted girls joining Cub Scouts, because I thought this is a boys thing. Boys need this. I don't see many boys scrambling to get into Girl Scouts. And so I thought these groups were, well, then they opened it up, and I very quickly hopped over to the other side of that issue. And I thought, man, I think this is actually really good for my daughter. She gets to do the things and learn the things and go through the books and do all the outdoorsy stuff, learning how to do things, all the science projects and all these things my son was doing, now my daughter is doing in Scouts. And so I love it. I love the fact that they're there. Well, Rainey's become very involved in Scouts, and she leads one of the younger dens as a den mother, and or den leader, I guess they'd call them now. And you don't want to call out the sex. So she leads that, and she took on the responsibility of kind of spearheading the blue and gold banquet this year, and she had that on Saturday. So my wife, being the very organized person that she is, did a fantastic job. And might I also add some kudos for my wife? I may have mentioned this on our Sunday show. It's Sunday, which is just a live, it's off of Odyssey Radio. It's a live stream I do on Sunday mornings. And so I may have mentioned this, but my wife even helped me get organized for my thing, which was separate from their event. And I would normally go to the Blue and Gold with the family, but this time I had an event. And so she organized a basket full of the stuff I needed to bring, table runners, and she did all of that. She set the basket down, and it's all folded up in there, all the little boxes of things, my business cards, and all of that. And so she's very organized. And so that was Saturday. So Saturday was a busy day. But Sunday, we pretty much sat on our butts and didn't do much at all. I don't think we even did the dishes. We didn't even cook on Sunday this time. We just had all the different things that were in the fridge, and everybody kind of fended for themselves. Bagels, croissants that we had, leftover Eastern food that my wife had made. And so everybody was fine. And we binge watched a TV series yesterday. And by 9:30 at night, I looked at the clock and I said, you know what we've been doing for the last 9 hours? Watching TV. And we stood up occasionally, to take care of things, take care of kids fighting, kids doing this and that. And other than that, though, it was a pretty quiet day, which you need every now and then. But then on Monday, you feel like, oh, man, I got to go out and exercise because I didn't do a damn thing yesterday. So that's where we are now. It's Monday night. It's been a good day. But there's something I want to bring up because this came up during the day yesterday. I don't feel that I lose my shit, pardon my French, a lot with my kids and my family. There's a lot of yelling that goes on in our house, though. The kids yell at each other. They bicker and fight all the time. My wife yells at the kids. I yell at the kids. Because it's mostly because you've said the same thing literally hundreds of times. Because if you think back over the course of 3 to 4 years saying the same things, and you say them over and over and over and over and over again, over the course of a year to 2 years, you've said them hundreds of times. And it's usually the same things. Pick up your stuff. Don't do that. Do this instead. When you throw your dish in the sink, don't throw it in the sink with food all over it and napkins crumpled up because they get soaking in the sink and you got floaties. And they're not really, I don't have them doing the dishes yet. I mostly do the dishes. So I yell about that one the most. I'm like, kids, how many times has Dad said, don't put your bowl or your plate or your whatever in the sink with food all over it because there's this sludge I have to dig out with my hands in order to get the sink to drain. Now, I've gotten to the point where I make them come over. Whose plate is this? I would like you now to reach in that water that's 2 inches deep and dig all the sludge out of the trap so the water will flow. So, there's things like that. Discipline, learning. But then there's the not listening factor, where you say to your kids, hey, I want you to do this thing. Go do this thing. Go take care of it. Go hang up your coat. When you walk in the door, don't drop your coat on the floor. Every day, by the way, folks, every single day. It's, hey, your coats are on the floor, guys. Go pick them up and hang them on the hooks. Put your boots away. It's winter here, so they wear boots outside. Pick up your shoes, and there are times, and then I come back out in the kitchen, there's shoes strewn all over the kitchen floor, there's toys all over the kitchen floor, there's somebody grabbed a paper towel, wiped their face, and threw it on the floor. I'm like, why are you throwing paper towels on the floor? Walk them to the garbage can 4 feet away and drop them in the garbage can. Or there's usually a bag we have sitting there for recycling. Paper goods go in here, this goes in there, and then I'll find the recycling bag almost every day filled with food products that they've dumped in there because they're too lazy to open up the top of the garbage can. I've got a pet peeve. One of my pet peeves, and I'll share this with you, is we have 2 bathrooms. We have the bathroom upstairs where all the bedrooms are, and that's where the kids take their showers or their baths and they do their stuff up there. And then there's the downstairs bathroom, which we try to keep neat. I take a shower down here. I get ready down here. I like to keep it neat for anybody that comes over, and the downstairs bathroom is neat. My mom taught me, your house can be a mess, but if your bathroom is, your toilet is clean, that helps. So I like to make sure the toilet's always clean. I've got my 5-year-old still will use a half a roll of toilet paper to wipe herself just when she pees. And so I'll come into the bathroom, the toilet's clogged, and there's like half a roll of toilet paper in there. And every day, it seems, I'm saying, Ellery, don't use so much toilet paper. And when I get really pissed about it, when I've got to every other day unclog the toilet because there's half a roll of toilet paper in it, I will say to the kids, and I'm not really imposing anything. I'm just yelling. And I say to my wife, I'm going to take the toilet paper, put it under lock and key, and the kids will have to come to me to sign out an allotted amount of toilet paper for each time they use the bathroom. Now, I'm not that anal, and I'm not that dictatorial, but there are times, I've almost considered that at times. And I tell the kids, I try to appeal them to on an economic level. Hey, toilet paper costs money. Don't use so much. You're making me buy twice as much as we need, 3 times as much as we need. And, when you get one of those big things of, 24 rolls and it's gone in 2 weeks, you're overusing your toilet paper. Now, maybe that's a little too anal for some of you. But literally, when you unwrap a roll of toilet paper and use 2 8-foot sections to wipe yourself after going pee, then you know that it's being overused. So, these are just pet peeves. They're the little things of life that aren't really big things. And I once saw a book that was entitled, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And then it was subtitled, Because Everything's Really Small Stuff, Isn't it? And so, yesterday, during the day, another pet peeve of mine is towels. I will fold all the laundry towels, and I stock the downstairs bathroom, even though nobody uses it all that much. And then I stock the upstairs bathroom, full of towels. We've done laundry. We've got about 50 towels in this house. And I'll stock that. And some days, I'll just count them. And I counted one day in the bathroom down here, 27 towels. 2 days, there wasn't a single towel in it. I got out of the shower, and I didn't even think to look ahead of time. And I reached for a towel, and there's no towels. And I said, hey, everybody, somebody bring Dad a towel so I don't have to walk naked, dripping through the house to look for one. Somebody bring me a towel. And then I saw them all in the living room afterwards, and I said, everybody. I said, towels. Where are all the towels? There were 27 towels in there 2 days ago, and now there's none. And then I will find courses through the week where my kids will spill a glass of milk. They run to the bathroom down here, they grab a towel and wipe it up. I go, don't use a towel for that, a bath towel. Use a paper towel. Use a bath towel if there's no other resort. Or something you got to wipe up quickly and you got no other choice. So, yesterday, I had not restocked the bathroom fully, but I put 5 towels down here. Big family shower bath towels, all folded up nice. That is, by the way, a pet peeve of mine. Again, I'm not anal and I'm not OCD, but I fold towels a certain way, and I want them on the shelf a certain way. And as I said to my wife once several years ago, can I have at least this one bit of civility? Can we be civilized here? If we're going to be a wreck everywhere else, and the house is always messy, and the kids are there. And by the way, my house hasn't been neat for 10 years. So it has periodic moments of neat where you stand and you want to take pictures of it. Hey, let's get a selfie, honey, with the living room in the background because it's picked up and it's neat. And that'll last an hour or so before the little white tornado comes through or anybody else. And now my 10-year-old boy's getting better. He kind of stays to himself and he doesn't mess things up. But the little ones, explosion. So yesterday, I walk in the bathroom, I wash my face and the hands, and I reach for a towel, and there's no towels. I'm like, everybody, where's the towels? And then I look at my feet, and there's one of the clean towels, still mostly folded up, with a corner of it pulled out, laying on the floor in front of the toilet. And I said, who took out the towel and used it and dropped it on the floor? I don't care if you got to use a towel. Why is it sitting on the floor? And of course, here's the answers. 10-year-old boy, not me. 8-year-old girl, not me. 5-year-old, I didn't do it. I look at Mom, and Mom says, I didn't do it. And I said, I know I didn't do it. And so, and I lost my shit. Now, not so much, I didn't fly into a rage. I wasn't going to beat my children or throw them out in the snow or anything like that. But I was like, damn it. I said, everybody, you three, I'm pointing at the kids, I need somebody to tell me who did that. I said, because I need you to go and pick up your towel and put it on the rack. I'm not bending over again. And mind you, folks, this is something that happens almost every day. And so sometimes I just bend over and I hang it up. And it's like, damn it, kids, hang up your towels. I say to myself, and I hang up the towel. Then I remind them, hey, picked up your towel off the floor. That's not where towels go. And all somebody did was, you know what it was? And I guarantee you I know this is what it was. The little one got into the habit a long time ago of not using so much toilet paper, so she would grab a fresh towel off the rack and wipe herself with the fresh towel. Now, mind you, we're talking just number 1, not number 2. All right? So I never found poopy towels on the floor. But I always suspect when there's a towel laying half folded on the floor and it's used and it's laying on the floor in front of the toilet, my young child has resorted to using cloth instead of paper to clean herself. So, there's true confessions of our family. And so I knew it was the young one who did it, because the other two have really gotten to the place where they don't do that anymore, pulling towels off and laying them on the floor. So the young one wouldn't confess. And so we're in the middle of binge watching this show, and so Rainey puts it on pause, lets me go through my thing, and I go through my tirade, and then I get into the other tirade of I look behind the sofa, which is at a diagonal in the corner, and there's a bookshelf at a diagonal behind it, and in all the little corners are all these little toys, the little things, these packages of things they get, Legos, little figurines, little rubbery things, and they all get all over the place. And so I pulled out the sofa yesterday, swept everything out, and you know what else I find back there? Garbage. Wrappers from candy, cheese slices, the string cheese that Rainey gets for the kids for snacks. All those individual wrappers laying back there. I find a almost empty soda pop can laying back there. And on top of all that are pillows from the sofa, which get stacked behind there. And so I'm sweeping all that stuff out of there. Then I vacuum back there. Then I pull every single piece of furniture that's loose, not like, the big TV stand or bookshelves or anything, but chairs that are in there, and I slide them out. Same thing, every corner of the living room. And I sweep that all up. I got a mound of stuff. I say, everybody go through your stuff, pull your stuff out of it. Otherwise, in 5 minutes, the whole thing's going in the trash. And that bolts them to alertness. Oh, I got to get my stuff. And, my 8-year-old daughter's gotten to the place that, I don't care, throw it out. And it's like, your good things are in there. I don't care. I said, well, you know what? Mom and Dad spent money on that for you. I expect you to be responsible for your stuff. Okay, so I went through my little tirade. I yelled at my kids. I yelled them up. And I was, now, let me slip into something here on a very personal note. There's something about me. I am not a neatnik. I'm not OCD about being neat, but I like things to be picked up. If you were to look at my desk, you say, you're not a neat person. I can't shift the camera. I'd show you. I got a big stack of pens there that I use for inking comic books. My business cards are there. I got an incense burner. There's a comb. There's a wrench. There's a pocket knife. My tarot cards are sitting here. There's a pile of coins. There's a pipe. There's over here, there's tax return papers. There's a stack of drawings and papers there. There's there's 5 of these sitting here stacked up. These things that I use for painting. It's got paint in them. And they're stacked up over there. And there's pens and pencils and ellipses for drawing circles and all that. So that's all over my desk right here. But that's my desk. That's my domain. That's where I work. But I know where this stuff comes from in me. Now, One of the things that I learned very early on with the whole, remember I've talked about it, the whole sexual abuse issue. When I was a little kid, I was sexually abused. Now, I didn't notice a lot of things because I grew up with this memory and it was just a part of who I was. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized how it affected me. One of the things that I learned was that most people who get sexually abused when they're very young, they grow up being OCD. They grow up being very neat. Things have got to be clean and in order around them. Because in the small child's brain, what happened was they lost order, even though they didn't know how to define that. And so as they grow up, they seek order. They seek things to be neat and clean. And they like neat and clean because that is ingrained in them. Now, where the baggage part of it comes out, the internal stuff, is when things get unneat and unclean and it gets disastrous around here, I get almost claustrophobic and I can totally lose my shit. And I've talked to my wife about this 15 years ago. When we were first dating, I talked to her about this. As you get to know me, I said, you're going to know. And eventually I told her things about my past. And I said, one thing you'll notice, I said, just let me know when you see me going off, because then I can stop it. Sometimes I catch it. Now, I've gotten really good at it. It doesn't affect me that much anymore, this neat and clean thing. But there are times it hits me and I just go off the deep end. And so Rainey pulled me back from the ledge a little bit yesterday. She got mad at me, too, for yelling so much. And she does her own yelling. We yell at our kids. And the yelling generally comes from, I'm so sick and tired of saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, and you're not doing it, guys. That we go, hey, everybody, stop what you're doing. We're now going to pick up the house. And so, all of that was supposed to be a 2-minute intro to lead into what I wanted to talk about tonight. And now we're almost at the end of the first half of this show, but what I want to talk about is how do we discipline our kids? Can we yell at our kids? Is it okay to yell? When is it appropriate? When is it excusable or justifiable? If we yell at our kids, if we swear at our kids, not at them because we're calling them names, but we swear because we're pissed off. And the damn it, the blankety blank, can we just get the blank and stuff picked up? Can we just do what we're blanking told every blanking day of the blanking week? That's the way it kind of sounds sometimes. Then we have to catch ourselves. Like last night, my son got in trouble for hitting his sister again. And it's just boy-girl stuff, sibling stuff. And I thwacked him. And he got upset, and I said, I don't want to see you hit your sister ever again. And how did I react? I smacked him. Not in the face or anything, on the shoulder. Stop hitting your sister. Because it was in the moment, and I was like, damn it, I've told you this 300 times. Keep your hands to yourself. And how do I react? I thwack him on the shoulder. So then I sat, the rest of the evening. Everybody else went to bed upstairs, and he and I sat, because I didn't have school today, watching shows, and he had his head on my lap on a pillow, and I'm sitting, we're talking, we're laughing and watching a show, and I wanted to let him know, hey, I'm sorry that I thwacked you on the arm, but I wanted to get your attention. So let's talk about that when we come back. We're done with this first segment. You're listening to the Intrepid radio program. I'm Scotty Roberts. We're going out for a 2-minute break or so. We'll be right back. Sit tight. All right, folks, welcome back from that break. This is Scotty Roberts. Thanks for being here. You're listening to my program, the Intrepid radio program, right out here on the Odyssey Radio Network, ODYSY1.com, to see all the goodness that is Odyssey Radio. And you can watch the simulcast in video over on my YouTube stream, Mr. Scotty Roberts. Now, we left off, and I want to jump into some of this material, talking about, it was originally going to start as how do we discipline our kids? What if we lose our shit while we're disciplining our kids? What, does that mean we're bad people? Does that mean we've done something bad and we need to go in a different direction? Does that just mean we need to watch how we do things? And we need to find better ways. And so how to discipline your children is the topic for today. And you're now in the second half of the program, and we're finally getting to it after that long preamble in the first half. So it's the age-old question, isn't it? How do I discipline my kids? What are positive parenting techniques? And you know what? I don't like a lot of the psychobabbly gobbledygook that's out there about, oh, just love your children through. Oh, just give them positive rewards. You know what? That doesn't always work. Sometimes your kids are onto that. And other times they're just like I heard yesterday, sometimes my kids will say, hey, I need you to go pick up your thing over there that you left laying in the middle of the floor. No. And I say, what? No. Yes, go pick up your things. No. I said, you realize you just told me no 3 times in the span of about 30 seconds? And I said, get up. And then my voice goes up. Get up. Go take care of your bowl, or whatever it was. And they finally get up. So it's the age-old question. How do we discipline our kids? And for generations, parents worldwide have debated the most effective parenting methods until their kids had kids, and those kids had kids and had kids. And what's worse, the division lines are very strong on this issue. Parents are on both sides of the camp, and they dig in their heels, insisting that their way is the most effective way to raise children. Now, I don't always feel that my way's the best, but it's what's working for me. But then I have to do the same thing the next day. So it's like, is it really working? So all the while, desperate parents are always searching for genuinely helpful solutions that'll finally bring peace into their homes. It's like the old... you almost don't want to mention his name because of the scandals, but the old Bill Cosby, back before his scandalous days, he said, when you're a parent, he says, there is a point where you no longer seek justice with your children. He said, you seek what makes quiet. And that's very true. So, is spanking the best? Is timeouts the best? All right, you go over there and you have to sit on the step there for 10 minutes until I say so. And if every time you speak and ask if you're done yet, you get another minute tacked on. I've used that one. Is yelling harmful? Something I just talked about. What about counting to 3? All right, 1, 2. And I always said to Rainey, I said, I never counted with my kids before, and I don't want to count with our kids. I said, I think counting, they learn to do it on number 3 or 4 rather than number 1. I said, I want to be able to say something to my kids and you do it. Number 1, it's because it's your obligation, your responsibility. Number 2, it's because your dad or your mom said do it. We shouldn't have to count. That's my philosophy on that. Should I give my kid rewards? Or are there only consequences for when they don't do it right? What if your partner and you differ on how to discipline? And by the way, I'm speaking to all of you as if you all have kids at home that are small kids. Now me, as you all know, I'm pushing 60, second marriage, my wife Rainey, second batch of kids. I've got 3 that are grown up and are all adults. I've got 3 that are 10 and under. And so I'm speaking to you. There's a lot of you that are my age or close to my age. Kids are out of the house, but you're watching grandkids. So, should we pay our kids to do chores? Is another one. And so the list is absolutely endless. And I know how endless that list is because I've asked all of these questions of myself, and many of them after I've already reached my limit to my eyeballs. So, having gone to bed hoarse nearly every night from reminding, nagging, haranguing my kids, yelling, all still see no changes in my kids' behavior, and I knew there had to be a better way. Now, let me encourage all of you by saying all hope is not lost. I know this because I've been there. I thought, this is it. There's no better way. And so deep in the trenches of parenting, you can see no way out sometimes from some of these things. And I firmly believe, and you know this about me in other areas and things we've talked about, that knowledge is power. And what comes from knowledge, wisdom builds from knowledge. And sometimes you don't gain that wisdom until you don't have kids at home anymore. And so, and with all the books and all the teaching and all the child psychology out there, all the television shows, all the radio shows, everything that's out there, you'd think that we'd have landed on the right tools and that we can all become the parents that we've always dreamt of being. So, but it's still out there. The questions are still there. And the disciplining wisdom that I want to share with you can change the trajectory of your family and mine. I don't say this from the point of having it all conquered. I don't. Yesterday proved it to me. But there are thousands, multiple thousands of us that are right where I am today, and that's asking the same questions. And what's the better way? There are positive parenting methods, and these are tools that are rooted in sound science, heavily researched practices, and I can confidently say that these tools work for children from toddlers to teens and are effective no matter what circumstances your family may find themselves in. But you got to incorporate them and practice them. So the first thing you have to ask is, what is the goal of discipline? So before we discuss the do's and the don'ts of parenting, take a minute. Consider the goal of discipline. Now, parents, this is going to apply to you with toddlers all the way up to teens. And those of you who may have little kids at home that aren't yours, grandkids, and so on, these are going to count for you too. Now, maybe you feel you've accomplished it by then, but let's take a minute to consider the goal of discipline. If I were to ask you about your discipline goals, you're probably thinking about those goals in terms of typical misbehaviors. Sibling rivalry. That's big in our house. It's always, no, it's him against her against her against them against her against him and her. And so it goes onward all the time. How do we curb disrespectful attitudes? How do you stop the temper tantrums? Yeah, my kids still have those. My son Flynn, he's 10. He'll bound up the stairs and bang on every step, bum, 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 because we told him to go clean his room, and he doesn't want to. And I'm like, hey, do not stomp on the stairs in my house. You can do that in your house when you're older and have your own. That doesn't always work. How do you put an end to the battles at meals? I've got my little one that eats absolutely nothing we prepare. And she can either starve or she gets a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or a peanut butter sandwich, which she'll make. Or she loves a bun with mayonnaise and ketchup on it. But she won't eat almost anything else we make. Unless we make boxed macaroni and cheese for her, which I hate doing because it's processed and it's gross. Well, so on and so on and so on. So while each one of these goals is completely valid and well-intentioned, when we pigeonhole our focus onto one or two problems, we miss the whole point of discipline. Disciplining, and I'm preaching to myself here, folks, as opposed to punishing, is all about training. It's the idea that we want to guide, instruct, inform, and teach our children how to behave instead of punishing them for misbehaving by hearing us yell at them, lose our shit and our tempers, spank them, ground them, whatever. The goal of discipline isn't short-sighted. It's not about the task at hand. It's about all those little tasks of hand, all those moments in the now, looking to the bigger picture. It isn't one usually specific problematic area. And so the goal of discipline is long-term objective. Think of it this way. If I were to ask you to pick 3 adjectives, hopefully you know grammar well enough to know what I mean by an adjective, that you hope will describe your child during adulthood, which 3 words would you pick? Resilient? Respectful? Capable? Self-sufficient? Hardworking? Self-motivated? Compassionate? Generous? Good? Decent? So when you're considering a discipline method, ask yourself if that method you're using is going to guide and instruct your child to be more like the adjectives you chose. So if I yell at my kids, maybe I'm the one who's instilling yelling in them, and so on. It's not that we don't lose our cool and yell every now and then. It's that if that's the only thing we do, that's what our kids grow up and learn. So does yelling at your child teach them how to be respectful to other people? Does spanking your child teach him or her how to show compassion or generosity? Because if I want my kids to be generous and compassionate when they grow up, does spanking them teach that? Does paying your child for good grades teach him to be self-motivated? I like to say to my kids, hey, this is your homework. Take pride in what you do. You want to do well. Well, you know, Susie's dad gives her $5 for every A. I said, I'm going to give you a congrats for doing a great job for getting every A, because that is your responsibility. And you've got to be motivated to be what you want to be. Does cleaning your child's room for them or picking up their toys after them encourage them to be self-sufficient? Sometimes I just do that because I'm frustrated with it, and I got to clean it up. Other times I get them going, and oh man, it's like, oh, the moping and the whining and the groaning. You'd think, you know, we were imposing some kind of physical labor on them. But, yeah, okay. Is that sufficient? The daily goal of discipline is to have your child learn from their mistakes and not repeat them. Unfortunately, most of us, we parents, have only been taught short-term solutions, and that's what we use. And sometimes I just want the thing picked up. I'm not trying to teach them a life lesson. But deep down back inside, the life lesson is, son, when you go off to college, when you have a wife, your wife doesn't need to be picking up after you. You need to do this yourself. And my kids, self-respect. This is your house. Respect it. Be courteous to everybody. Pick up your stuff. I said, why should mom or dad have to pick up your stuff? I said, you don't go picking up after us. So, you know, logic sometimes doesn't work on kids either. So consider the ever-popular timeout method. That tactic of sending kids to their room or sitting them on a stool in the corner to watch all the activities go on before them without them being able to make a sound or participate. Do they really think about what they've done and consider their options to be a better person and instill character in themselves? You know, if I had not hit my sister, I wouldn't be here in this corner, and someday I'll be a much more courteous man because of this. No, they don't think about that. They're 5, they're 8, they're 10. It's not so much with the 10-year-old, but they don't have the processing skills to reflect on how to be a better person. They don't think about what they did wrong and what they could do differently next time, which is many times I go, now sit there and think about what you've done and how you're going to handle yourself next time. They don't think about that. They think about, oh my God, I'm stuck in this corner and I'd rather be doing that. No, I hate you. I hate you for making me sit in the corner. But they do have emotional awareness. And they have to know, they have the emotional awareness that makes them know they operate by being frustrated with how mom or brother or friend is treating them. Or how frustrated they are with mom and dad. It's an emotional process. And the problem with timeout and counting to 3 and spanking and taking away privileges is that these punishments fail to teach or to train the child the appropriate way to respond in a situation. And just because a child is told no, over and over, doesn't mean he inherently understands what behavior would receive a yes. So without proper training, kids will keep up the same behaviors despite punishments we impose for bad behavior. So when you reframe your discipline strategies by considering long-term goals, you can focus on the small training decisions every day that'll teach your child how to be a capable, resilient, respectful adult. Does that mean I do this? No. Does it mean my wife does it? No. We have our moments where we want to just pin a medal on our chest and pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, we handled that really well. But most of the time, we're trapped in the moment of responding to something. And so we don't act or see the big picture of how will my children be when they're adults. When I scream at my child, is that helping them along? No. It releases my frustration and lets them know I'm pissed at them. That's about it. So how do you discipline your child? There's the big question. As I mentioned before, we often equate the term discipline with punishment. Is punishment discipline? No, it's not. Punishment comes from the Latin root word punire, which means to chastise, take vengeance for, to inflict a penalty on, to cause pain for some offense. But the word discipline comes from the Latin word disciplina, which means to teach, to guide, to instruct. That's the key to correcting our kids' behaviors, giving them the tools they need to learn an alternative positive behavior to replace the negative behavior. The problem as parents that we face is we're usually angry about something, and we respond in anger rather than thinking, how can I teach my kids some positive behavior? And so when we punish with the intent to have the child pay for their crime and their mistake, it doesn't help them learn how to make better choices next time. Punishment often leads to power contest. And because our kids know poor behavior gets them attention, they're going to keep doing it. And because these frustrating behaviors take up so much of a parent's energy and patience, they understandably want to know how to respond in the moment. Not the big, glorious, big picture. How do I respond in that moment where my kid has done something? I'm like, I'm flashing red. For whatever the reason is. But here's the problem. If all we do is react, put that in capital words, R-E-A-C-T, if all we do is react to parenting problems, we're going to miss the mark. And it's going to completely exhaust us emotionally, which leads to physically, mentally. So the most effective discipline strategies are those that proactively prepare a child so the parent doesn't have to reactively respond. So, get that. I'm going to repeat that. The most effective discipline strategies are those that proactively prepare a child so that the parent doesn't have to reactively respond. So, successful discipline requires an initial investment up front. But trust me, your initial investments will have greater behavioral payoffs in the very long run. When it comes to knowing how to effectively discipline your child to achieve long-term results, Here's 3 areas, and we probably won't get to them all. I think we are almost out of time. No, we got a few minutes left. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left. So let's see if we can get through these, at least in light. Number 1, fill the attention basket. Kids need attention, plain and simple. And if we don't keep that attention basket full with positive attention, kids are going to seek out attention any way they can get it, even negative attention. So if you find your kids are promoting negative attention from you, it might be a good idea, a good time to step back and say, am I giving them enough positive attention? They'll push our buttons with negative behaviors because to a kid, even the negative attention is a deposit in the attention bucket. This doesn't mean you have to be at your child's side 24/7. Just taking a few minutes a day to spend one-on-one with your child, distraction-free, doing something they want to do, is going to reap immense rewards in their behavior. Now, last night, after I lost my cool with my son for hitting his sister, once it cooled down, a few minutes later, I said, get over here. And he comes over, and he's kind of scowling. And I said, just come over here, sit down next to me, put your head on the pillow, let's watch a ghost show, which we did. And we sat and talked through it. And had a good time. So take 10 minutes once or twice a day with each child. Play a game they've picked up. Read their favorite book. Let the phone go to voicemail. Don't respond to the text. Let the dishes sit in the sink. Oh, we're good at that one. I just did the dishes this morning because we didn't touch them yesterday, and it was a heap. I spent from about 7:30 this morning till 8:30 just doing dishes. So when you fill your child's attention baskets positively and proactively, your kids will become more cooperative and less likely to seek out attention in negative ways. I found my little 5-year-old is eager to help. She gets so much time. She gets so much of the attention because she's here more time. The other kids are at school. She doesn't go to kindergarten until next year. So she's home and she gets more attention. She's helping all the time. Here, Dad, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing that for you. If I'm working on something, she'll come and try to help me. So life is busy, and it's busy for everyone, and finding extra time in the day might be daunting at first for all of us. I know it is for me. Sometimes when I'm finally sitting, it's because I don't want to be doing anything. And then my kid says, will you read this book about the unicorn pony and the love affair it had with the fish? Love affair is not the word there, but the unicorn pony and the fish. I want to read that one. I'm like, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is read about a unicorn pony and a fish. I don't say that to my kids, but it's like, yeah, let's read it. Okay. But life is busy, all right? But think of this as an investment in your relationship with your children and improving their behavior. When it comes to knowing how to discipline your child, giving them what they need to avoid poor behaviors is the first place that we can have great impact on them. And so for number 2, take time for training. As you think about how to discipline your child, it's important to remember the root meaning of the word teach, instruct, guide, inform. The best way to discipline your child is to help her make better choices by teaching them the correct behavior or response. Role-playing is a great way to do this. Now, keep in mind, folks, you also got to have your attitude in check and in the right place. This is where you have to be aware and be awake and be in the moment. Many times we're pooped. We're tired. We're worn out. We're tired of picking things up. We're tired of doing things, and that's when it hits us. But you got to be in the moment with your child. Role-playing takes being in the moment. If your child's having trouble sharing, and this results in her hitting another kid or their brother and sister, instead of whisking her away to a timeout, diffuse the situation. Show your child the appropriate way to respond. Something like, hey, I'd really like to play with that tractor when you're done. You know, something like that. My kids don't do that. The little one especially. I want that thing! And I'm like, enough yelling. So if your child's throwing a tantrum because they're hungry, give them the appropriate language to use. I'd like a snack, please. I think I'd have a heart attack and fall over if my kid ever said that. It's usually, milk! From their sitting position, watching a cartoon or playing with something. And I'm like, you got feet and hands and legs. Come on out here and get your own milk. And because I've shown them how to pour a glass of milk many times. So, or if your child's throwing a tantrum because they're hungry, give them the appropriate language. Here's a fun part. Switch roles. Pretend you're the child. Let your little one direct you through making better choices. Now remember, these are parenting moments. And sometimes they're hard to come by because we just don't feel like it. But practice makes progress. Progress makes more peace in your home. More peace in your home leads to more quiet and tranquility and a little more picked up of stuff. Practice makes progress. Progress makes more peace in your home. So be encouraging when your kids make the right choices, or even show any movement in the right direction. Praise them. And I do that all the time. Hey, that was great. Look at you. Sometimes I do it in a fun voice, you know. Hey, you picked up your thing and bowl and put it in the sink. Outstanding. I'm very proud of you, Dad. And so that's the kind of things we can do. And you know what? We're about out of time. So I can only say that was number 2 I got through. The third one is set limits and stick to them. Set limits and stick to them. And there's more to say about that. And you know, I've got tons of information up in front of me. And so we'll probably hit this again tomorrow. But I think these are things that not only help our children, but they teach things to us about us, how we are supposed to act. And this whole thing of being awake and being aware and being in the moment, being in the now, all funnels down to child rearing as well. This applies to everything we do. So folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. We'll see you here after a 23-hour break tomorrow night. And in the meantime, be awake, be aware, be in the now. Talk to you later.